Om Amriteshwari Namaha. It is an honor to introduce to you all our beloved Sivanandan. Sri Sivanandan DS is a postgraduate in physics from MG University in Kerala. He has served as research associate for 3 years in the Sugratindra Oriental Research Institute in Kochi. He was assistant professor in the Department of Physics here at Amrita University for 9 years from 2017 to 2016. In 2016, he joined the Department of Amrita Darshanam as assistant professor and continues till date with his work on Indian culture, heritage, and history. In 2017, he secured the UNESCO Sahapedia Fellowship for his work on the history of Kerala School of Astronomy and Mathematics. In the same year, he worked with the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts to construct a scale model of a falcon fire altar for their Vedic Heritage Museum in New Delhi. He is the co-founder of the very successful Satgamaya program, which started in 2017 and continues till date. He is also a faculty mentor at the Amrita Astronomy Club. And personally, he has been a mentor to us all for several years now. He is a great researcher, an idea bank, a walking, talking library, if you will, and he's immensely passionate about Indian culture, specifically yoga, astronomy, Mahabharata, and the Bhagavad Gita. And it's very rare to be around a person who is innovative and fun at the same time. Just last year, he wrote a paper with our Amrita Jain on Patanjali Ashtanga Yoga and presented it at Varanasi. And instead of a technical paper on its various aspects, he connected the 8 steps of Ashtanga Yoga with 8 places in India and suggested a guided tour that goes around India and concludes in our ashram in Amritapuri. The ashram with our beloved Amma was the 8th and final step that is related to Anandam in his paper. And that's another thing with our Shivanji. He's very passionate about travel. He has taken lots of students on guided tours to Hampi, to temples and cultural hotspots in and around Tamil Nadu, and to many trails in South India. And if you're all into this, maybe next time we all could go together with Shivanji. And that's our dear Shivanji for you, everybody. Now let's walk with him on the trail set by Bhagavan himself, the Bhagavad Gita. Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you, Harikrishnan ji. Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, Harinandana, for the prayer, the introduction. First of all, Gita Jayanti wishes to one and all attending this session. So, as Amrita pointed out, very few knows that today is Gita Jayanti. Most of the people, sadly, are focused on something else. It's a matter of sad. Why? Sadness. Why? Because I will discuss that part in the coming slide. This December is a month of hope. You know why? Yes, December is that time of the year when sun takes the return path. He goes up to the southernmost point and then takes it's a relative motion and then comes back to the northern side. So it is a point of hope that the temperature has reached its lowest point and now the temperature will increase. The summer days are coming, they are in the vicinity. So from different parts of the world, the people celebrated various festivals related to this resurrection or the return of the sun. And we are familiar with some of them. So one of them will be this Yazda in Iran, Yule in Scandinavia, and then the birthday of Sol Invictus, the god, the sun god in Rome, and in our own India, it is celebrated as Magara Sankranti, like that. So there were very many festivals celebrated all over India. But sadly, nowadays, the current generation forget all of this, and then they are celebrating something else, which was a later invention. And this year, it's a coincidence that Gita Jayanti is also being celebrated on December 25th. Okay. Now our topic is Gita, so we will now discuss about Gita. Now, if you want, or if somebody asks you, what is Gita, or what is the specialties of Gita? So it will be something like that. We can summarize this in one slide. It is the conversation between Bhagavan Sri Krishna and Arjuna. Our beloved Amma, Mata Amridandamayi Devi, says that Bhagavad Gita is a commentary on the life of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And it's in the form of, the text is in the form of a conversation between Sri Krishna and Arjuna. And now, when? So it happened just before the beginning of Mahabharata war, where in the Kurukshetra in modern Haryana. When? Okay, this is the date of birth of Bhagavad Gita. Shukla Paksha Ekadashi of Margashirsha month 3136 before Common Era. That is, Gita is now at least 5157, 5157 years old. So this is about the, if we can say, the biodata of Bhagavad Gita in one slide. Now, what is the context of Bhagavad Gita? What is the different situations which culminated in this advice, this conversation, which started this conversation between Sri Krishna and Arjuna? So now we will move to the larger context of Gita. So we all know there was a fight between Pandavas and Kauravas, and then Sri Krishna tried his best to avoid war. He tried to mediate an interlocutor, but everything failed. And one fine day, everybody came together for a great war, the big war, Mahabharata war. And the military formation has been completed. Both sides devised their own strategies. So Pandavas were fighting for dharma because they know that Kauravas are standing for adharma. Kauravas made this formation known as Sarvatomuga Vyuha. We are very familiar with the Chakra Vyuha. Something like this. This is another Vyuha, a military formation Kauravas formulated in the very first day of the war. Here you can see Bhishma, the commander-in-chief of Kaurava army, and then Dronacharya, then Duryodhana, then Ashwatthama, and then other peoples. So this was the formation, military formation from the side of Kauravas. Similarly, Pandavas also formed their own military formation. Their commander-in-chief was not Arjuna but Drishtadyumna. This is another formation. This is the formation from Pandava side. Here you can see Arjuna. This is not the original position. He came to the front later. Then we can see Bhima and other people, Yudhishthira, all these people. So the formation has been completed. Now what happens is the beginning of the war. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna himself, Arjuna, other Pandavas, Duryodhana, Bhishma, Duryodhana, all these signaled the beginning of the war by Shankanatha. That was the technique they used at that time. Now, at this time, I think we all will have that curiosity to know our opponent. Arjuna had a curiosity. He wanted to scrutinize. He wanted to know who are there on the other side. He very well know who are on the other side, but maybe to check their formations, etc. So Arjuna request his charioteer, his Sarathi, our Sri Krishna, to take his chariot to the front and to keep it in the middle so that he can scrutinize both sides. And then he reaches the center when he sees these people. Here you can see Bhishma Pitamaha and Arjuna's teacher Dronacharya. Now, this is a moment of confusion. The reason to relation, that slip of Arjuna from reason to relation happens at this moment. So till now, Arjuna was very much convinced that Kauravas are the adharmic people, and being a Kshatriya, it's my duty to fight for dharma. I have to kill all the Kauravas, regain the kingdom, establish dharma, etc. These are all the uh, thoughts which, or these are all the plans the Pandavas made. But at this moment, at this particular moment, from reason to relation, the Arjuna's mind falls and then he becomes confused. Instead of seeing adharmic people on the other side, he sees his own relatives. Kith and kins are in the opposite side. Then he develops attachment towards them. And we all know what is the result of attachment. That's raga. The development of raga happens here. Then the moha and this shoga, that is grief and delusion, overpowers Arjuna. He loses his discriminatory power. Then he decides, okay, so on the opposite side, I can see my great grandfather, my teacher, my brothers. Okay, I'm not going to fight the war. Then he gives a big excuses also. He even quotes from scriptures. Hey Krishna, I don't want to continue the war because so and so scripture says this is bad, that is bad, etc. Now we can analyze the things happening in Arjuna's mind in this slide, in the next slide, like this. He initially develops attachment the moment he saw Bhishma and Dronacharya and the other people on the other side. Immediately attachment develops. That's raga. And then delusion and grief develops, which results in is the Viveka Nasha, that discrimination has been lost. And finally, he makes some false judgment. And he gives a set of ahimsa advice to Sri Krishna. Let us read those advice. So he's very dull now. He's in a depressed stage. So he says, "Oh, Madhusudana," that is addressed to Bhagavan Sri Krishna. I don't want to kill them. That is Kauravas. Even if they kill me, even for the kingdoms of the three worlds, I don't want to kill them. Then forget about this earth, maybe this kingdom. So even if you promise me the three world, I don't want to kill them. Why? Oh, Janardana, what pleasure will we derive from the killing of the sons of Dhritarashtra? Although they are criminals. So here, very well, Arjuna know that the Kauravas are criminal, but sin alone will be our Lord if we kill them. So that is the excuse Arjuna quotes. Again, he continues. Okay, so we cannot kill the sons of Dhritarashtra with our friends. Oh Madhava, so how can I be happy? How can we be happy after killing our relatives? So this is the confused state of Arjuna now. So are we familiar with this kind of situations where we are very much prepared for everything, and the moment the uh, activity starts, we are in a depressed mood or we are down, we are unable to take a decision. I think one moment which is familiar to many of us will be that question paper moment. We are ready, well prepared, but the moment question paper is being opened for the exam, then we know what follows. Okay, so this is from 1.42 to 1.43. That is 42nd sloka to 43rd sloka of the first chapter. See, the textual discussion is not happening here because I thought that is not relevant for this particular talk. You will be comfortable or you will be aware about the various chapters, that is 18 chapters, 700 slokas, etc. That's why I did not introduce the text of the Bhagavad Gita. We'll straight away jump into the core. Okay. How can we be happy after killing our relatives? Now, this is the state which he is falling. He developed attachment, from that delusion and grief, and then loss of discrimination, false judgment. Ultimately, this will be the final state will be destruction. That is the Sarvanasha. Sarvanasha doesn't mean that Sarvanasha of the world, but Sarvanasha of the person. In this case, it is Arjuna. However, we all know that Arjuna did not perish. Arjuna was saved. Why? Who saved him? We know who saved him. That is Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Krishna Vasudeva, Krishna Paramatma, Sri Krishna Paramatma saved him. So here, Bhagavan Sri Krishna gives a lot of advice, counseling, motivational tips at different levels, at a spiritual level, at a worldly level, at an emotional level, and finally removes the depression from Arjuna, and ultimately he makes Arjuna a good warrior and to continue his Swadharma. The Swadharma of Arjuna here was to fight the war, to kill the adharmis and establish Dharma. So ultimately, Sri Krishna becomes successful in this attempt. Now, so this is the ladder of fall, which has been discussed very detailed in the 62nd, 63rd sloka of the second chapter, 2.62 and 63. But I have summarized this in this particular slide, that is attachment, delusion, grief, and then all other things happens in between, anger, then karma, all these things happen. Okay. Now, this question will come. Okay, so this happened, this particular advice and this establishment of Dharma happened around 5156-57 years ago. How this is relevant to me? What is it relevant to somebody who is in 2020? Okay, the relevance is this. From soldiers to students, the obstacles in life are same. Whether it is Arjuna or Arjuna of my class, whoever it is, the obstacles they face in their life. So this text is not discussing any war techniques, but it discusses all mental approaches, the chitta level approaches, chitta level attitudes which we have to practice to clear those obstacles. And their solution is also same. So the same problem, the same raga, same attachment which affected Arjuna is affecting us. The same delusion, the same grief is affecting us. So that is why the relevance of Gita for today's people. And Bhagavad Gita is a vast repository of such solutions, not only one. So, contrary to many other texts of different faith, Bhagavad Gita proposes not one, but it is an encyclopedia of techniques. So, as we proceed, we will encounter many of them where Bhagavan Sri Krishna reveals, I think, at least 100 techniques to the Arjuna. Okay, you overcome this by this, that. So, connected one, but each one of us can select one of them depending upon our caliber, our vasana, our interest, and then try to perfect it and then reach the ultimate stage of perfection. So that's a specialty of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita offers a lot of cue cards. So our duty lies in taking that cue, read it, and then act properly. Understand it and then act properly. So that is where the relevance of Bhagavad Gita lies. Bhagavad Gita generally is not a book to be worshipped or to be memorized. No, that is there, that is good, but at the primary level, it has to be practiced. To the main purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to become Sri Krishna. That's what Amma says. So Bhagavad Gita, if we practice, we should become like Sri Krishna. So even if we are not becoming Sri Krishna, we should be 1 inch closer, 1 inch nearer to Bhagavan Sri Krishna. That should be our approach. So we'll try to read and understand and practice and then understand the various tips for practice from Bhagavad Gita for some cues. Okay. Now we uh, understood that Arjuna was suffering with attachment, which resulted in grief, delusion, etc. Then what makes our life, student life, difficult? Okay, I think all of you will have a set of answer in your mind now. So I have compiled some of them from this particular survey conducted in IIT Kharagpur. So the correlation will be almost identical with this and whatever you have now. What are these? Current academics, that is the academic pressure which you are happening now, which you are suffering, if I can use the word. Then professional future, loneliness, relationships, the pressure from your friends, social phobia, then health problems, financial problems, family, gender identity for somebody, some students, etc. So these are the various problems faced by one premium institute in India, and I'm sure that this will be the case with most of the students all over the world. Now, how can we conquer these difficulties, these obstacles, like the sufferings, the stress from current academics, the sufferings or the stress from your anxiety of the professional future, the professional future basically about the placement and other things, and then loneliness which you may encounter, and the relationship, all the relationship problems which you may encounter. So how can we overcome all this? So we will listen to Gita. So how to conquer stress? So this is a very direct answer from Bhagavad Gita. Conquering mind is the direct way or the easiest way to conquer stress. We may try to avoid that stressor. We may try to go in another direction to avoid that person who will give us stress, but that is not the easiest way, that is not the right way. The right way is to strengthen our mind. The mind cheats us, mind creates a lot of trouble for us, so we should overcome it. We should have mastery over our mind, so that should be our primary technique to conquer all this stress, fear, the depression, all these things. At the same time, it's a warning that Bhagavad Gita is not a therapy text, so it's a preventive text. So the techniques has to be practiced right now, so that you can avoid all this stress related thing in future. It's not like that after suffering this you have to go to Bhagavad Gita extra. No, not, that's not the intention here. Now, how to conquer the mind? Arjuna has a question, and you may also have questions at this stage, so you can use the chat box to raise your questions, and at the end we will answer, we will discuss uh, most of them depending upon the availability of time. Okay, the question here from Arjuna is, oh Krishna, mind is restless and the strengths, the indriyas, are strong and firm. Therefore, I think controlling, restraining, mastering it is difficult as controlling the wind. It is extremely difficult. How can I control it? So here, this question is asked in the battlefield of Kurukshetra around 5000 years ago. I think the same question will be asked by the students in their MS Teams classrooms yesterday, today, and maybe tomorrow also, because their mind is also restless. The moment the teacher uploads something, their distractions will be there on social media, notifications, their chats, their other things. So the distraction, the restless mind, the lack of concentration, so everything is the fundamental. The problem is the unable, the difficulty of being unable to control our mind. Okay, now Sri Krishna has a very straightforward answer. Okay, so if you want to ask which is my favorite sloka from Bhagavad Gita, this will be the one which I choose. There is no doubt that mind is restless and difficult to control, but oh son of Kundi, that is addressed to Arjuna. By practice and detachment, by abhyasa and vairagya, it can be controlled. So this is the very straight answer. You have to practice and you have to, that is abhyasa and then vairagya. Practice detachment. Abhyasa vairagya. By this you can conquer, you can master your mind. Now we will have this question. What is practice? What is to be practiced? What is this vairagya? Is there any answer? Yes. So detachment and practice, we get a insight into these two from the 12th sutra of first pada in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So in Patanjali Yoga Sutra's Vyasa Bhashya, mind is compared as a river. It's not an ordinary river, but he says, Vyasa says, Ubhayavahini Chitta Nadi. That is, the mind river flows in both direction, not in one direction, but in both direction. What are those directions? So this is a graphic representation of that Nadi. It flows towards evil, that sensual pleasures, and it flows towards good. That is that thing which gives merits to us. So this Ubhayavahini Chittanadi flows in two directions, and our aim should be what? Let's listen to him. Listen to Vyasa, the commentator of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. You have to block the flow towards evils by Vairagya, that is detachment. So detachment is that which blocks the flow of Chitta Nadi, the mind river, towards evil things. Then what is practice? What is Abhyasa? That which accelerate the flow towards good things. So these two things are very important. The Abhyasa is something which you have to practice continuously, which will accelerate the flow of your mind towards good things. Generally our mind will always fall to the lower side, lower side, lower side. We want that, we want this, and then focus will be lost and we'll be roaming here and there. So we need that practice which will accelerate us towards the higher things. That's the good things which gives us the ultimate happiness. And detachment, that is vairagya, has to be practiced. Vairagya from, so vairagya will block the flow of river towards the evil side. So I have used the icons of dam and a motor. So vairagya is something like a dam which prevents the flow of water towards the evil side. And then the other one is accelerate it to the higher side. So we have to practice and then vairagya. Now we'll continue. What to practice? I have mentioned practice. Okay, you have to practice the practices which will accelerate our mind towards the higher happiness, the goodness. What to practice? This is from Yoga Sutra 112 commentary. Okay, now show me the cue cards for practice. That may be the question in your mind. This person has been talking about these things, that thing, but you said cue cards. Show me. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, Bhagavad Gita has almost 100 cue cards. So in this slide, I have listed around 26. So I hope this Devanagari script will be comfortable for you. We'll read some of them. Abhayam, Sattva Samshuddhi, Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti, Dhana, Damam, Yajna, Swadhyaya, Tabha, Arjavam, Ahimsa, Satyam, Akrodam, Tyagam, Shanti, Abheshinam, Alolupatvam, Mardavam, Hri, Achapalada, Teja, Kshama, Dridhi, Shaucha, Adroha, Natimanita. So these are some a set of 26 practices which will take us to the higher good. This is what Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, 1st, 2nd and 3rd sloka says. So Sri Krishna in the Deva Asura Sambat Vibhaga Yoga, that is 16th chapter, list around 26 qualities associated with divine beings. So each one of them is a cue card for us. We will discuss one of them now. So we have selected this particular one, 16th one. Bhudeshu Daya. That is the cue card which we will discuss. What is Bhudeshu Daya? Daya is compassion to all beings. So this is actually, each one of them is very, very important. Not the 26, the entire cue cards, the entire wisdom in the Bhagavad Gita is very useful, very important. But for this lecture, this discussion, we have to set a boundary. That's why I have chosen only one. So based on this template, you can take any other and then study yourself. Okay, so Daya is the compassion to all beings. It's not just to human beings, but to other things. Animals, plants, the earth itself, all the nature, everything. Bhudeshu Daya. Now, why I choose this Daya? That is why I choose this compassion. Okay, so why? There are many answers. So one of the reason is nowadays we are seeing a lot of news which depicts incidents which lacks compassion. So some of them has been listed here. So this dog incident in Alua, that's one of them, the top. And then there are many other things which lacks compassion, which shows the inhuman nature of humans. Okay, and so I thought for this age group, this will be an apt topic, this compassion. Okay, now how to practice compassion? So we know we have to practice compassion, and we know we have a good understanding about what is compassion. That is daya. So show daya or the karuna, karunya to all the other beings, other human beings. Yes, but how we should practice it? So there are some clues from Bhagavad Gita itself. It should be done with jnana and vairagya. It should not be like that monkey who tried to save a fish from the pond. So there was a monkey in the garden. He was sitting in the treetop, and then he saw a fish swimming in the pond. So he thought, oh, that fish may die in the pond. I should help him. And then the monkey jumped to the pond, picked the fish and kept it in garden. And we all know what happened to that fish. So our attempts to be compassionate may disturb the receiver. So it should not be like that. It should be learned compassion. So the compassion should be based on wisdom. Compassion should be based on jnana. We should know. It should be a viveka janita jnana. So the discriminatory power has to be used, and then we have to apply that compassion. So in Mahabharata, there is an example of Sri Krishna killing Shishupala. So Shishupala was saved 100 times. So till then, Sri Krishna was very compassionate. 100 times he became compassionate. He saved Shishupala. But then the next time, 101st time, then he has to kill it. So there is a limit in that context. Okay. So now Vairagya. What is Vairagya? What is that Vairagya which we have to practice while doing the act of compassion? Vairagya, the detachment. For example, you may think, oh, that boy is from my village, so I should help him. Okay, this girl is from the neighboring village, so I need not help her. Okay. Then that particular person is from my jadi. Then I will give some compassionate activity. Okay, I will give my charity box to him. Okay. But that particular group is from the different political groups. Okay, they are not worthy about our compassion. So it's like that. So it should not be based on any attachment. It should not be based on any expectations also. The vairagya, the detachment from the expectations also. And one more thing, it should not be a chain. The compassion, the act of compassion should not become a chain for the receiver. So nowadays we are seeing many charitable organizations or charity persons who uses this compassion as a screen to do their unlawful activities. Every day we are reading in newspaper. Recently there was a case from Thiruvananthapuram itself where his compassionate act he used to some particular act. I think you will be knowing, so I am not quoting it. Okay. And then it is also used as a screen for other converting him to my group. Okay, I will give you this compassionate charity activity. You become my member, my group member, like that. No, it should not be like that. So this jnana and vairagya has to be there practicing compassion, a learned compassion, a compassion based on vairagya. Okay, so this is about how to practice compassion. Now, compassion in action. Okay, this is quote from Amma. Okay, there are two types. Quote: there are two types of poverty in the world. The first type is due to the lack of food, clothing, and shelter. The second type is the poverty of love and compassion. We need to tackle the second type of poverty first. For if we have love and compassion, we will wholeheartedly serve and help those who lack food, clothing, and shelter. So this is an important point that, or maybe this can be considered as the essence of whenever you are practicing, you can use this as a guide that removing the poverty, the second type of poverty. That is, they are suffering from the lack of love and compassion. So your act should remove their poverty. So it may be a human being, it may be an animal, it may be a plant, it may be anything, it may be a piece of land, whatever it is. So this can be considered as the guiding light for compassion in action. Whenever you are performing action, you can use this as a guide light. Okay. Now, some of the examples where we participated in our campus, I think some of the senior students may easily recognize these activities. So this was installing this waste bins in Karunagapalli police station. Yes, Karunagapalli police station. Okay. So is it an act of compassion? Yes, waste recycling at the source is an act of compassion. You are being compassionate to the waste recycling team, the animals which feed on the waste bins, all of them are saved because of your act at the beginning. At the beginning itself, you are separating it into different recycling and then the food material, food waste, plastic materials, the biodegradable materials, etc. So that is also an act of compassion. So the listing is done to give you some insight into various acts of compassion which you can plan in the next week. Why next week? Because this is the right time. Maybe now is the right time to act compassionately, because 2020 has been a difficult year for all of us. So who knows, your act of compassion may remove the poverty of someone in your neighborhood, maybe a bird in your garden tree. And okay, planting trees all around your home, wherever there is space. Then also you use your Viveka, the Jnana, use plant only those trees that is suitable to that particular place. And then there should be somebody who take care of it. It should not be like that you, as a mission, you will plant 1,000 trees and then you will not look at, there is nobody to look after it. No, it should not be like that. There should be somebody who is taking care of. Okay. So two actions, and then yeah, this was I think an activity which we conducted in 2018, distribution of educational kits to the deserving students in Thiruvananthapuram, Kanyakumari district. From our Amarthapuri campus, we have distributed more than 5,500 kits to the students. The pencil box project, I think that was the name. Okay, and then very familiar, very common to us, that is blood donation. And another one is the bird feeder, which we have placed in the home of students, faculties, and many other places in the campus. So these are some of the actions which you can act, compassionate actions which you can practice without much investments. And also the simplest one will be a beautiful smile. That's also an act of compassion. Okay. So these are some of the examples. Now, the power of compassion. Okay. When we are acting with the power, when we are acting with compassion, what will be the result? Then, as an individual, we are no longer really performing actions, but are merely allowing creation to act through us. So we will be like Ishvara's hands, and this is the power of compassion. So whenever we are acting with daya, but with based on the viveka, jnana, and then vairagya, then it will be an act of God Himself, act of God herself. So we should always try to act compassionately. Now coming to the next one. So is there only one cue cut? There may be another question which you may be having now. Okay, one is sufficient. So this is the path to the successful life. So take any uh, card. So anything, say ahimsa or akrodham or satyam, take anything, and then if you know this path, then that will be a template for you. So here we have used the property compassion. Compassion, you have to practice it with perfection to, and then with vairagya. So compassionate actions with vairagya will result in chitta shuddhi, that is control over your mind, the mastery over our mind, which will lead us to a stress-free, successful life. So control over the mind, this is only the first step. The yellow color step is only one. So there are hundreds of them like that. So dhyana is another one, then pranayama is another one. So there are many things, but for this discussion I am limiting it to this compassion. Okay, so compassion practiced with detachment will results in chitta shuddhi, that is control over mind, which ultimately leads us to a stress-free, successful life. Okay. Now, is there any other specific reason why I choose compassion? Okay, because that's the very first step towards spirituality. The spiritual path both begins and ends with compassion, Amma says. So, if you are acting compassionately, or if you have already acted compassionately, you are already in the path of spirituality. Okay, so I think I have taken around 30 minutes now. This will be my okay. Now, questions. It's time for questions. So you can raise your hand and ask questions, or you can put it in your chat box. So maybe the summary slide we will keep this. That is, take any cue card, act it with, perform it with detachment, gain control over your mind, and then experience the stress-free, successful life. Thank you. So I think we have a couple of minutes for questions. Any questions you can ask? Ganesh. Okay, please. Ganesh.
Namaskar, Shivananji.
Namaste.
Yeah, I'm getting my own echo actually. Okay. It was a nice talk. I have one basic question which has kind of bothered me for several years. How do you distinguish between pity and compassion?
How do we distinguish between pity and compassion?
Because if something that Amma does is out of compassion, because she doesn't have any partiality towards any sentient being or even non-sentient thing also.
Hmm.
However, we have our likes and dislikes, and we are compassionate. We claim to be compassionate towards some, while towards people or things that we don't like, we are not. So, uh, is do we mix pity with compassion, or how is it? I would just like to know your thoughts on it.
Okay, I think this will be my answer for this. This that is based on jnana and vairagya. If we perform, then we can consider it as a daya. That is the real compassion towards the beings. So the discriminatory knowledge, and then without expecting anything. So most of the compassionate act, which we, the so-called compassionate act, which we are performing, will be expecting something else, at least a thank you from them, or at least a smile from the receiver. Or maybe we will try to act compassionatively to the animals, and we will keep the animals in the cage. So I think this will be the my take for that question. That based on jnana and vairagya, if we perform, that will be.
That was really a detailed and an interesting talk on how relevant the text Gita can help someone in the 21st century. And very well, Shivaji has stressed upon the most trending word, the stress, and how to prevent stress or how to get out of not get out of it, how to prevent us from getting stressed. And also he showed us the important cue cards which we can follow in life or practice in life, and especially on detailing how to practice one of the cue card, daya or compassion. Thank you, Shivanji, for this wonderful session. Thank you so much for taking a lot of time from your busy schedule and giving us such a wonderful talk for through Ayurveda Wisdom Lecture Series. Also, at this moment, I would like to thank everyone who has joined us today. Apart from the celebration mode, you have come and joined our Ayurveda Wisdom lecture series. That shows how much importance you give to our culture. Thank you so much. And also, I would like to extend my thanks to Hari Krishnan Venugopal for the wonderful introduction of Shivanji, and also Harinandana for the prayer, and also for everyone who has supported us, both for the technical things and non-technical things. And also I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Almighty for showering His immense blessing on making this Ayurveda Wisdom lecture series a great success.